Good afternoon. I am Peter Wuenschel, Chair of the Education Division of the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Education Connections. Education Connections is a monthly webinar hosted by the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. The mission of the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce is to be champions of business success and quality of life in our community. The foundation of business success begins with the region's educational system, which includes pre-K through the highest professional degrees. This webinar series showcases the people who lead our institutions. We ask these leaders to share issues facing our educational institutions now and in the future. I'm very excited about our topic today because it is a testimony of the great partnership that our school district has with our business community, and it exemplifies how Clear Creek ISD is shaping our leaders of tomorrow. Today, I have with me two special guests. Our first guest is Monica Giuffre. She's the principal of Falcon Pass Elementary here in CCISD. And our second guest is Dan Newman, the Chief Executive Officer of Methodist Clear Lake Hospital. Welcome, Monica, and welcome, Dan.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here.
I appreciate you both being here, and we have a lot to cover. So, Monica, I'm really just going to pass this off to you and frame this for us. What's our topic today?
You bet. You bet. First, I just want to say again, thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about the journey at Falcon Pass with Leader and me. And I'm especially excited about the collaboration between myself and Mr. Newman this morning to really talk about the connections that we can make between things we are doing with our youngest children in elementary school and the things that are happening in a local successful business like Houston Methodist. So appreciate that opportunity. And I have to start just by sharing a quick story about my first introduction to Clear Creek ISD. About 15 years ago, when I was working on my master's degree, I had a professor named Glenn Friedman, who at the time was a CCISD school board member. And I'm not a Houston native, and so I knew very little about the Houston area and district. But the way that he spoke in our course about innovation and aspirations and possibilities in education really helped me know that that's the place I wanted to continue to work and grow. And I believe it's that mindset in Clear Creek ISD of innovation that allows for opportunities like the Leader in Me to be tried. And so I'm thankful for that opportunity to even work in a district that allows for creative thinking and problem solving and looking for those next great things for kids. I believe we do have a video to share to start out that will give you a glimpse into our school and into one of our first grade classrooms where you can see children at work and learn just a little bit about what Leader in Me looks like on an elementary campus.
I know you're having technical difficulties. What we'll try to do is maybe send a link so that people can watch the video. So Monica, I know we have some slides. If you'll continue with kind of an introduction to the Leader in Me.
Sure, absolutely. So the goal for today is really to share an overview of the Leader in Me program and a little bit about how we started in this process. So as a campus 6 years ago, we went through what's called a strategic planning process to collaborate and really bring clarity around what we aspired for our students, kind of that end in mind. We knew our goal was that for every student to be successful, but our discussions really led us to look at what does it mean to be successful. Absolutely, students needed academic intelligence. We are a school, but we realized they also need emotional and social intelligence as well. That becoming a successful adult, you really need to address the whole child, your work habits, your life skills to become a future citizen are equally as important as the information that you know. And so that idea of teaching the whole child became a centralized focus for our plan moving forward. And we talked a lot about helping students discover their strengths and their passions and helping them to be confident in who they were with the realization that everybody has strengths and weaknesses to work with. We zeroed in on wanting kids to have the tools and mindsets to be continuous learners and problem solvers from wherever their starting point was. And it really became about a personalized path for every student. That continuous growth is really what we were after. And that was the common denominator so that everybody could move forward through a goal setting and knowing how to take action for themselves. And then finally, we talked about, we don't want them to just have all these skills. We want to teach them and we want them to know those things, but we wanted to go beyond that because it's not just about what you know, it's what you do with what you know that matters. And so we really wanted to create this atmosphere where children had to use those skills and put them in practice to become a productive citizen. So that shift from a consumer of information to a productive citizen, to make contributions to the world around you in a positive way. And so we had all these pieces. We knew where we wanted to go, but we weren't sure how we wanted to get there. And quite frankly, we just backed into some Google searches of student leadership, effective practices, habits. And we literally just found the Leader in Me program. And so then we started to do a little bit more research, and I took a small team to San Antonio. They had a Leader in Me symposium there. And so we attended that, which included some keynote speakers and breakout sessions and some campus visits. And we went to go see it in action. And immediately, once you see it, we were completely drawn in. And so then we came back to the Houston area and took a wider scope of people. We grabbed teachers, we took some of our parents and went and visited some other Leader in Me campuses in the Houston area and said, is this what we're saying we're looking for? Is this something we want to pursue? And could this work for our campus? And the resounding yes was how do we make it happen? And so, of course, the biggest hurdle with Leader in Me is it comes with a pretty hefty price tag, because the first thing you do is you train your entire staff in the 2 days Stephen Covey 7 Habits training, which as a business leader, if you've been through that, that's a big chunk to bite off for your entire staff. So we had to go looking for some funding because a school budget, we just don't have that type of funds. And so we wrote a grant through the Clear Creek Education Foundation. And we also went to our local PTA and said, listen, if this is what we say we want, then how do we figure out how to make this happen? And we are so thankful that the Education Foundation took a chance on us, and our PTA jumped in, and we kind of jointly said, if this is what we want for kids, let's do it. And so we were able to move forward and begin the process. So if you can go ahead and turn to that next slide. So the rollout of Leader in Me is really a 3-year commitment for a campus. And so this framework here on the page, it is the bird's eye view of those practices that they utilize to create a whole school continuous improvement process. And so what we're going to do today, and what I'm most excited about today, is to kind of share some time with Mr. Newman to look through these pillars of leadership, culture, and academics, or work productivity in his case, and just look for those pieces of alignment to the things we're building in an elementary school and how that plays out all the way through to a successful business environment. So you'll see, we're going to zero into that framework. So the first step of this is really shifting some of those core beliefs, core paradigms. As a campus, what is it that we're going to hold true to? What is it that we believe about our students? And Leader in Me has 5 paradigms, and they're there on the page, and they're so powerful. I do just want to read those. So first, it's not that leadership is for a few people, but that everyone can be a leader. And then the next one is a few people are gifted, to everyone has genius and something to contribute. The next one is to improve schools, the system needs to change, that it's someone else's problem to solve. But that shift to change starts with me and that ownership piece. The next one is that direct and control of student learning. The adults control the learning. To let's empower our students to lead their own learning journey. And then finally, educators focus solely on academic achievement. And that shift to educators and families are partners in developing a whole child. So we started talking this out. And once you use these paradigms as watershed moments for all your actions and your decisions, things immediately start to change because you're evaluating the things you do and making sure it aligns with your purpose. And then, of course, the piece that many people are familiar with are those 7 habits of highly effective people, those timeless habits that we know just to be true, to help people be successful. We start to train not only our staff, because we had to model first what we want to expect in children, but then to teach our children the meaning of those 7 habits and how to apply those in their life. So once you do those 2, that's really the focus of year 1, is just building that common language, that common vision for everyone. Things immediately start to change for the better. Dan, do you want to jump in at that point and share a little bit about how you create that common vision at Houston Methodist?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you mentioned when you guys first saw this in San Antonio, it resonating with you and seeing, is that something that we want to roll out? My first exposure to this was at your elementary school. And I'll tell you, it was pretty refreshing to see. We so often think of kiddos being tied to their laptop or their phone or their device and not engaging people. And to watch the students in your, I think it was a principal advisory committee, raise their hand when they wanted to have something to say, to engage each other, making eye contact, some of the very basic things that we sometimes see lacking even in very accomplished professionals, was normal for these guys, and very cool to see. You know, I think we'll get into some of the specifics a little bit later, but a lot of the corollaries here between what you're teaching the students early and frankly what we're teaching our professionals, our directors, executives at Houston Methodist, physicians, nurses, providers for our patients. There's a lot of correlation, and it's important because, again, we don't see a deficit generally in the academic aspect of a nurse. What we might find as opportunities is the ability to connect with people. And you can't connect with people if you can't engage people. And so it really spoke to me seeing the program in place there to see kiddos making connections in ways that you might not normally expect an elementary student to do. Very exciting.
Absolutely. I will say one of the things that we notice with children is it gives them more and more opportunity to practice speaking and collaborating and problem solving together through working through those 7 habits. That's exactly what the meat of the habits represent. And so it's neat to see how kids evolve from not feeling comfortable speaking in front of a group or sharing their ideas or knowing they can create change to, by 5th grade, pretty much they could run the school if we let them. Neat.
Right.
So we're going to zero in now into those pillars. You know, the first thing you really do with Leader in Me, once you get all the basic knowledge in and have everybody on the same page with the vocabulary and the habits and the practices, is you really look at your campus culture. Does our culture, when you walk into our campus, when you look around, do you see what we stand for? Are we clear in our vision? Do you feel it? Do you hear it? And that's really what you do in year 1. You look at that physical environment and you have positive messages, you have growth mindset messages, you have examples of how to utilize the 7 habits to be a successful student, a successful person. And you grow from there and you make sure that it is very clear who we are and what we stand for. And this is a great example. I love this picture. This just happened this year. One of our focuses this year in the area of culture is to really give way to student voice. We want students to feel like this is their school. They're a part of the problem solving. They're a part of where they want to go next. And this was a student suggestion. And they said, we want a place in our school where anybody, if they wanted to write a positive note, give a thank you, that they had the ability and the tools to do that. And they wanted an interactive board. So they designed it, created it, they stock it with note cards and all kinds of cutouts. And in the mornings, as kids go to class, you will usually see a huddle of kids down there writing little notes to their teacher, their friends. I've seen notes to siblings. And it's a great way to just start that day off with gratitude and teaching them that they have an impact on the people around them. And it's been just a great thing. And for that one student to know, wow, I did this. I added value to our campus by giving this suggestion. It's just a great example of how we have a student-centered culture here at Falcon Pass.
So Dan, I'm going to direct next few questions to you. You're the CEO of Methodist Clear Lake Hospital, and Monica, the principal of an elementary school here in CCISD, just shared a framework that helps create a culture on her campus for leadership. Can you speak specifically to some of the practices that Monica just shared that align with Houston Methodist's work culture? And do you think that the lessons kids are learning through the Leader in Me will help them as they enter the workforce?
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I'd be happy to do that. I think it'll help them certainly in the workforce and it'll help them in life. And I wanted to just kind of give it a quick example of that from the Falcon Pass days when we were observing Monica at the early outset of this partnership. And the issue that the kids were dealing with was one of how do we manage the playground equipment. Some of the kids were kicking the balls over the fence to a neighborhood. And emerged pretty quickly was this issue of accountability, of what should the accountability be for the kids that are maybe not being as respectful to the equipment, and how do we keep going back to the PTA and asking for more funds for playground equipment, balls, I think specifically. And so the idea of accountability is one that I find to be an opportunity in our workforce, frankly. It's oftentimes that there can be a victim culture, there can be a finger pointing if something's not, the outcome's not desired, is not being achieved, must be somebody else's fault. When you say things like change starts with me, I think that's exactly right. I'll give you another specific example. When we have directors in our organization, directors are required generally to have a master's degree. So we're talking about very educated people. But we oftentimes find some of the soft skills need to be refined a little bit. And one of those that I think mirrors what you're teaching pretty closely, and it's actually a kind of a Covey habit as well. We have a program called Crucial Conversations. What we find is that oftentimes even leaders may have trouble communicating effectively with a peer or with a subordinate in a way that is not blaming culture, in a way that says, let me first seek to understand your position before I impart my position. And so when I see the Covey habits of seek first to understand, and I think about Crucial Conversations, a course that we teach our leaders at Houston Methodist, there's absolutely a synergy there. In fact, it's not just they're related, it's really the same thing. And so I get excited about students at this age learning those foundational skills that don't just improve or address perhaps academics, but helps address the development of the whole person. Another thing that I really like, and I hope I'm not jumping the gun if this comes up a little bit later in the conversation, but there's the idea of jobs that the students will apply for. In an environment where sometimes it is a little bit of everybody might get a trophy. In this case, you have to apply yourself, and sometimes you'll get the job that you applied for, and sometimes you won't. But the process of going out, filling out a resume to apply for a position, guess what? That happens at Houston Methodist as well. And so not everybody can be in every position that they want, and learning those things about how do I apply myself differently to get the outcome that I might want to achieve. Those are really important life lessons. And so I look at the parallels here, and I think from a somewhat selfish standpoint, if we can get the kids in our community to begin seeing the world like this, we will all be the benefactors, whether it's in healthcare or oil and gas or aeronautical. Our community will be better off when our kids understand the principles that you're teaching through the Leader in Me.
And to piggyback off what you said, Dan, about leadership roles, I think that's so important too, that kids at this age learn what their strengths are so that they know how to best utilize their strengths to apply for those roles. Here, it may be, some kids apply to speak on announcements because they're really good at public speaking. Other kids do recycling because they're really great at lifting and they like a clean environment. So it's teaching kids to really know what their strengths are so that they're not saying, hey, I hate to speak and I'm going to sign up to be a morning announcer. They can best choose where they fit. And I think that speaks to what you were talking about as well.
Yeah.
So that segues perfectly into that. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Peter. Oh.
I was just going to ask Dan maybe to go a little bit more, but you can chime in, Monica. I love the development that's going on, building on student strengths, making them accountable. I was going to ask Dan if he's seeing that within the business world. What does leadership development look like in the business world, and more specifically, what do you have in place at Houston Methodist to grow leaders?
A couple of things I think I might say to answer that. One of the things that is foundational at Houston Methodist are our values. And if you walk into any of our hospitals, you'll see the acronym ICARE: integrity, compassion, accountability, respect, and excellence, because we feel if we don't have those values, we don't really have much of an institution. So the foundation of things like respecting ourselves and respecting each other. Accountability, we talked about the kiddos being accountable to each other, to the PTA that's funding the purchase of the balls. Those are foundations at Houston Methodist through our values that we also kind of hold close. Another corollary, I think, with regard to leader development, we have at Houston Methodist a system function called organizational development. And that group seeks to develop our leaders as well as our employees. One of the tenets regarding organizational development and our views at Houston Methodist is that there's not an end goal. You don't develop and then you're through. I think I saw a slide about continuous learning and continuous development, very much the same here. There's always an opportunity to improve and be better. And so good to great, another kind of not a habit exactly, but something that we aspire to is as you develop and you improve your skill set, there's oftentimes things that you can continue to improve that may not have, be at the same level. And so the idea of continuous improvement is another tenet within Houston Methodist of how we develop our leaders.
That's so exciting to hear. Here we call it the leadership pyramid, where kids first learn to lead themselves, and then they slowly grow their circle of influence, where they then, once they've got themselves under control and they feel like they've got that skill set, then they lead in their classroom, and they start with a little classroom job to be accountable to their peers. And then they move up to a grade level job, and then they move up to a school job, and eventually they move up to how can I impact my community outside of my school. So it kind of speaks along those same lines of how are we intentionally looking for opportunities to grow people at their pace in that area of strength, and that it's not an end game, that you're continuously learning and growing and evolving. And then, of course, this aspect of we're our school. And so the end in mind is to take all of these habits and these skill sets and apply them to our academic achievement. How do we use goal setting? How do we use beginning with the end in mind and being proactive and taking charge of our learning and apply that to our academic success? And here at Falcon Pass, we do this through a process called WIGS. It's catchy for kids, but it stands for Wildly Important Goals. And each year we select our wildly important goals and then align them as an entire campus. So just to give you an example of that, here at Falcon Pass, we have a goal that every child makes a year's worth of growth in reading and math, and that goal never changes. We want all kids to grow in that way. But then at the grade level, we say, okay, in first grade, what does that mean? To grow a year in math in first grade, what do kids need to be able to do? And that team will identify a handful of essential standards that kids absolutely need to know how to do before they go on to second grade. Things like adding numbers to 10 and being able to compare numbers, whatnot. And then little Johnny under that, so he'll track those things as a first grader. But then little Johnny will say, well, I'm good at comparing my numbers to 10, but I really still need to work on subtracting numbers within 10. So that's my personal goal. And so there's this clear alignment from the campus level all the way down to the individual child that really promotes and growth. And kids are accountable. They track that personally, then they track that in their classroom. They work together to achieve goals around that. So there's this continuous process of how is the work I'm doing? Is it helping me achieve my goal? Do I need to make adjustments? And then we celebrate. That's the funnest part of it in elementary school. You'll see in the picture down there in the bottom corner, classrooms, when they reach their goal, there's a big announcement in class and they ring the bell and we make a big celebration of that to keep kids motivated. But I think in this process is really that shift from not the teacher keeping track, and it's not necessarily about the teacher holding that learning and driving that path. It's the student knowing, hey, this is what I need to work on to be a successful first grader in math. Let me choose the work that's going to help me get there, and then let me celebrate when I get there.
Monica, could I just make a comment about that?
Sure.
I see semantics may be the only real difference in some of these, but what you call wildly important goals, we might call a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, or a breakthrough objective. But the idea is the same of having identifying what's important. And I really like your second bullet point of data. We oftentimes know the direction we want to go, but it's very hard if you don't quantify your goals. So, at Houston Methodist, we try to ensure that our goals are what we call SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. But it's hard to measure if you don't have data. And again, I'm looking at things that are being taught at this age of both setting goals, personal goals, organizational goals that roll down to the individual student, or in the case of Houston Methodist, to the individual employee, and having data to back that up and tracking progress. So it's, again, a lot of synergy here.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I love that we use through Leader in Me is called the 4DX model, because it's easy to set goals. What we focus on is, what are you going to do and commit to doing regularly to achieve that goal? And so here we call those lead measures. And then it's tracking and monitoring. Is that helping me? Do I need to shift my lead measures because I'm not achieving my goal? And it's just that continuous process. And once we lead them through that process, we start with academics. Then they can take that continuous learning process and apply it anywhere else that they choose. So it's been really a powerful process. We'll hear kids now talk about goals, outside of school, and I have a goal, for all kinds of things. Teachers have goals for weight loss is a popular one. But once you learn that process, you can truly apply it anywhere.
Absolutely.
Dan, I really appreciate you being here, and Monica, to help connect how education and the workforce can work together. I'm really excited about the Leader in Me process. One of the things that I'm curious about, Dan, is you have made a significant investment in this program. Why is a program like the Leader in Me important to you, and why is it important to Houston Methodist Clear Lake?
Sure. Thanks for that, Peter. Yeah, we, as a nonprofit organization, one of the exciting things is when we have good years, we're able to put that money back into the institution and into the community. We don't have shareholders that we're trying to generate wealth for. We do that back to the community. And so when we have successful years and we can find ways to contribute, we enjoy doing so. And so part of this is the function of a nonprofit health system that cares about its community. And so this was a project that really spoke to us, because it does get, there is clear alignment to the workforce at Houston Methodist. There'll be a little bit of a time gap here from elementary students or even high school students before they're entering the workforce at Houston Methodist. But we do see this as a long-term play. We do see this as an improvement and an adjunct to the great work that's already happening in CCISD through education, but a way to develop our community, not just our kids, but our community, so that, again, whatever avenue they may choose for their profession, I think we will all be the benefactors from students who understand these skills that sometimes don't get missed, or sometimes do get missed, when we're focused on academics alone. So we're excited about it because, again, it's improving our community, and we're excited to be a part of a community that long before Houston Methodist made the decision to invest in this aspect of a child's development. So nice synergy, again, with what we find important and how we run our business, and how the Leader in Me is conducting the development of our kiddos with people like Monica.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much. Just a shout out to Methodist Clear Lake Hospital. Methodist Clear Lake Hospital is investing in this program very specifically for Falcon Pass. And if you see up here, there's Seabrook Rotary, Space Center Rotary, City of Webster, Clear Creek Education Foundation, PTA. This community is investing in education, in leadership. So I thank the two of you for doing what you are doing. Here you have on the screen, Monica, if you want to speak to this, where all of these programs are. Do you want to talk a little bit about that before we close it out?
Sure. Every year, minus the last few years with COVID, it was hard to start up much of anything. We were keeping afloat in those couple of years, but these are all of the schools that have started the Leader in Me process in CCISD. Early on, we have leadership days where we invite other campuses in to just take a look, see if this looks like something that could be a great fit for your campus, and then they go through the avenues to go ahead and get started. So it is slowly spreading its way, thanks to the generosity of Dan and Houston Methodist and other partnerships with our school district. It's exciting to see it spread throughout Clear Creek ISD. It's a great opportunity for kids.
Comments? All right, Monica Giuffre and Dan Newman, thank you for a wonderful presentation today. We are truly blessed to have both of you in this community. Thank you for developing our leaders now and our leaders in the future.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
All right.
Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
This has been Education Connections, hosted by the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for being here, and join us next month when we will showcase another educational leader in this great community. Until then, thank you.